Hi, I'm glad you stopped by. In this video, we have some very important things going on here. The first one is a special report on YouTube. YouTube is getting ready to eliminate all the people who are creators that are not actually making money for YouTube. And I don't blame them at all. I think that's good business. I don't know how in the world they survived all this time. Just in case you don't know, there are millions of people on YouTube putting up videos, and YouTube is hosting them for free, and some of them make good money and some of them don't. But the point is, people like me, I don't have 1,000 subscribers, I don't have 1,000 views yet anyway, and it is, so YouTube, the potential for me disappearing and my channel being closed on YouTube is very, very high right now, and according to my understanding. So think about that. We'll do whatever you can do to copy and paste, secure this information, download this video. There'll be a link on just right under my chin here that will give you the Advent Seventh Day Keepers.org link, and you can write it out and get it. Right between seventh and day is a hyphen, so it's Advent Seventh Day Keepers.org, and that will show up a little bit later. All right, we have a special video. This particular video is also about the atonement of Christ. This is a very critically important topic, and it's very important that you get a handle on this. This is a part of the present truth. ORL Crosier wrote an article entitled The Law of Moses. That article in its entirety is endorsed by God, and you need to get a copy of it. Do whatever you can to get a copy of it. The link will be in the description of the video here. And he has 6 questions in there. And the reason for this is because the whole Protestant world believes that Christ made the atonement on the cross. And I'm going to demonstrate for you how it is that much of the counterfeit spirit of prophecy has this lie of Satan in there. And what's the difference? It makes a difference what you believe. And we'll get into all of that later, but right now we're going to nail these 6 questions. Christ was crucified on Calvary. And his first question is, if the atonement was made on Calvary, by who was it made? Because Christ was the appointed high priest, and he was hanging on the cross. He couldn't have made it. So who officiated on Calvary? Wicked Jews and Roman soldiers. So there was no atonement made on Calvary. The slaying of the victim is not the atonement. Christ was slain on Calvary, but that was not the atonement. The atonement was made by a priest who took the blood into the temple in order to make the atonement. But Christ is the appointed high priest, but he could not have done that while he's hanging on Calvary. And that was the third question. The fourth question is, the atonement is made in a sanctuary, but Calvary was not such a place. So how could he have done it there? Fifth question, he could not make an atonement while on earth. Why? Because Hebrews 8:4 says he should not be a priest while he is on earth. And I will mention here also that there are a couple places where inference is made that Christ acted in the role of a priest while he was on earth. We will not be bringing those here today, but I'm mentioning that. So number 6 is whatever the nature of the atonement was, Christ could not have done it until after his ascension because we have no record of it. And when you put all these factors together, that put your feet on solid ground instead of at the whim of the doctrines that come through. And this is what is totally key. You need to get that article, get all of the items that I have in the description listed. There are not that many of them, but you get this material and secure it. Get it on your hard drive, because unless you have it there, you don't have it. And that's important to understand. Do what you have to do to get it and secure it so that you do have it. You never know when I will disappear. All right? Next, we're going to take a look at the Conflict of the Ages series as it promotes the lie of the atonement that somehow, some way, Christ's death on the cross made the atonement. Okay, Patriarchs and Prophets, 16 times in Patriarchs and Prophets, this lie is promoted. Prophets and Kings, I found once. This was just using the word atonement to find the different references. Not all of them actually have the lie of Satan, but Patriarchs and Prophets 16 times, Prophets and Kings once. Acts of the Apostles 3 times. Desire of Ages 5 times. The 1884 Great Controversy, which is what we've been focusing on here, 8 times. It is in the 1884 Great Controversy. The 1911 Great Controversy, 14 times in the 1911 Great Controversy. This lie of Satan is promoted. Now we need to cover some language here that is in some of these references, because Satan is very artful at his deceptions. And right here I want to touch again on something. If you think that you're so rich in spiritual discernment, which is what Laodiceans think they are, you think you're so rich in spiritual discernment that you can decide which is from Satan and which is not, I got news for you. Satan has had 6,000 years of experience dealing with the human race, and we are told he has now 100 times greater power to deceive than when he deceived the angels in heaven. And you think you're going to do something? The second point is that humans in the last days are more susceptible to his devices. And you put those things together, and you have a problem if you're going to study the counterfeit, because you're going to be like Eve at the tree of knowledge of good and evil, listening to the whisperings of Satan, which come from himself, and you're going to be lost. Don't do that. So part of this language that Satan is using, it's referencing after the close of probation, or right up to the close of probation, and it's calling Christ's work in the sanctuary these words, the closing work of the atonement. That's an inference that there was an opening work, which they kindly tell you is when Christ made the atonement on the cross. He started making that atonement there. But that is not true. That's the lie of Satan. There is no closing work of the atonement. There's only the work of the atonement. And it's lasted right now 175 years. And it's very important that you get a handle on this. If you would like the references for where all of these are in the Conflict of the Ages series, and this is the only portion of the counterfeit that I covered because it's far too great and take way too much time for all of this. But if you would like the list, send me an email, and you can go to Advent 7th-daykeepers.org, and you can get my email address there, or phone me and let me know what's going on in your mind. Let's get these things settled. You need the truth, or you will be lost. So now we're going to take a look at a special lie in the 1911 Great Controversy. And I'm going to read this from you. The first portion is going to be the truth. And it says, in the typical service, the high priest, having made the atonement for Israel, came forth and blessed the congregation. So Christ, at the close of his work as mediator, will appear without sin unto salvation. And that last part you can tell is in quotations. It's from Hebrews 9:28, to bless his people, his waiting people, with eternal life. And you can see there it's taken from page 485, paragraph 3. And now we're going to move ahead to page 658, paragraph 1. And that first portion is the truth. Now the event takes place foreshadowed in the last solemn service of the Day of Atonement, when the ministration in the Holy of Holies had been completed and the sins of Israel had been removed from the sanctuary by virtue of the blood of the sin offering. Then the scapegoat was presented alive before the Lord, and in the presence of the congregation the high priest confessed over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel and all their transgressions and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat. Leviticus 16:21. Then it says, in like manner, when the work of atonement in the heavenly sanctuary has been completed, then in the presence of God and heavenly angels and the hosts of the redeemed, the sins of God's people will be placed upon Satan. He will be declared guilty of all the evil which he has caused them to commit. Notice what is going on here. It's saying, now back up here to page 485, this is the truth, because Christ is going to appear without sin unto salvation. But here on page 658, it is saying that he is actually going to come to earth in the second coming with this sin, because the high priest carries the sin out of the sanctuary and puts those sins on the head of the scapegoat. That's what happens before he comes in the second coming. But this is saying it does it after the second coming. And that's what it says here, because it says that then in the presence of God and heavenly angels and the hosts of the redeemed, the sins of God's people will be placed upon Satan. Beware of the counterfeit spirit of prophecy. It is the sophistry of Satan. And that word is spelled S-O-P, his try. God bless your study.